I never wanted to feel so free. What's up? What's up? Proverbial boy here on I believe it's a Tuesday afternoon in a cosmic nebula as usual. Just wanted to shoot the proverbial breeze with you for a moment before I go out to dinner and, talk a little bit about the so-called new science of charisma. Now, what's so new about it? Right? Charisma's been around for ages. Since time immemorial, people have been going up and having others see them in a favorable light, being like, damn, that guy's really witty and charming. I like this fella. So what the hell, what exactly goes into that? So as you all know, I've devoted the majority of my adult life to investigating that in order to gain personal benefit for fun and profit. Right, so I can, date the people I want to date, let's just say, in a van, in a hot tub, in a variety of other places and positions and permutations, in groups, in relationships, in business for that matter as well. So what does it all mean, all right? That's kind of what we're trying to get at here. What's it all mean? Well, I think that when we talk about charisma, I think it's one of those things where historically it's been viewed as kind of this magical quality, this sort of nebulous quality, right? It's either something you have or you don't. You're born with it or you're not. However, I've begun to define it as energy, right? Energy flow, psychological energy, emotional energy, physiological energy, some sort of output through your external communicators that comes from within. And where does that come from? It comes from somewhere above us, a higher source that we're a conduit for. And if you can tap it and give that external expression, that's essentially what charisma is, right? There's a power in authenticity, there's a power in spontaneity that is just highly, highly attractive to people. And it makes them want to be around you. It makes them want to listen to you. It makes them want to implement your ideas in group settings and one-on-one. So having said that, it would stand to reason if we define it as energy, it would stand to reason that if we increase the energy, we'll increase the charisma. But what's the problem? People are like, oh yeah, that's great, Jeff. But the problem is I have these various inhibitions that are blocking me from expressing myself freely. Like I had a dude this past weekend on boot camp on the infield training. And this kid, he was quite young. He was a handsome motherfucker. Right? He was like a handsome fella. And that was his stated goal. He just wanted to be more free in his social interactions. Honestly, I didn't even think that he was particularly that interested in having like romantic success per se. Although of course he did want that. But, that was the goal. He just didn't want to feel stifled when meeting people. He didn't want to feel stifled when going to a party where he didn't know anyone. You don't want to feel stifled when meeting someone, where the stakes are high. It's a high pressure situation like an interview or something like that. So, it just goes to show, I've long ago stopped trying to guess what students are going to do good at the beginning of the program. Because it's always like the 6'2", jacked, fucking chiseled jaw, handsome guy that sucks. He's like one. And it's like the dude with like the stained Rick and Morty shirt with his like belly hanging out and his ass crack showing. That gets it done, right? I mean, not always, but again, you never can tell. So it's not related necessarily to, again, looks. It's just, do they have that vibe, right? And then of course, it's quite fascinating to see how, at least to me, how so many people, they come onto this shit, they come onto these programs, and there's a fascination with technique. There's a fascination with gimmicks, conversational gambits, routines, for lack of a better term, I guess you might say. And I understand that on a deep intrinsic level because, I was that guy. I mean, when I started doing this in 2003, we've all read the book, the mystery book, the game book. I had 2 hours of memorized material. What happens when that, I was always very good at rote memorization. And I could recite these things almost like I was a Shakespearean actor or something like that. Then what's the problem? Well, what about when those 2 hours run out? Now the facade is gone. Now they're like, oh, this dude just sucks. So but I was fascinated with that, and it stands. Look, it makes sense because our educational system, there's a huge emphasis on rationality, empiricism, solving problems with rote solutions and things like that. Using methods to arrive at specific solutions, and intuition and feeling is pretty much discredited, right? And with good cause, due to the amazing success of science and empiricism in our society. But I think it's been given short shrift because one thing you'll learn in a situation, in an interaction where there is no direct thing that you must say, there is no agreed upon conventions of what can be an interaction where you could say anything. Faced with that blank page, most people are completely at a loss unless they're told exactly what to do and say. And I think one of the biggest epiphanies for me was shortly after that the game book came out, because we were faced with a bit of a, I guess you might say, a crisis of confidence. We were at a precipice because we're like, oh no, the routines that we've known so long, they're going to become public knowledge. They'll be rendered useless. We must learn the natural game, and we kind of did that almost out of fear or desperation. We said we need to learn to adopt a more improvisational style, and indirectly, what we were doing is we were learning to access our own personal intuitive energies. And look, half of the thing, the routines and gambits were something someone said once spontaneously. I was like, oh, that's good. I mean, half the things I say on a regular basis are something I said once spontaneously. I'm like, that's hilarious. Say that again in a similar situation in the future. Right? So again, there's a massive power in spontaneity. There's a massive power in authenticity, but you've got to train yourself to not step away from the logic and rationality, but maybe give equal credence to intuitive impulses. Learn to trust your faculties a bit more. Learn to open up and become a channel for those fucking energies, those higher energies, much in the same way a musician might, or a poet, or any other sort of artist. Creative people will often describe feeling like they're a channel for these higher energies. And that's how anyone that's good at this stuff feels when they're in the zone. They're in that flow state, and everything just, we've all had that at some point. That flow, that's just, it's just that smooth flow spitting out of your mouth. And it's just gold pouring out of your mouth. And the timing's perfect. Everyone thinks it's hilarious. The inflections are just perfect. The rhythm, it's all there because there's a certain intrinsic beauty to it. Like, who is that? John Keats, he said, beauty is truth, truth, beauty, right? There's a certain form to it that's very pleasing, and it's just coming out from within. And so again, the big takeaway here, I think that ultimately what we had to learn, and what I try to impart to my students now, it's like, look, people aren't attracted to the content so much as they're attracted to the vibe, right? What is the vibe you're putting out? Now, there's an old aphorism that we've all heard, 90% of communication is nonverbal. Yet, we all take this to be true, yet at the same time, we never really bother to investigate that 90%. Wouldn't it make sense if that was true? If 90% of communication is nonverbal, for you to investigate every variable that goes into that type of communication. Again, if you want to just do normal stuff, you can, you don't need to investigate that. But if you want to sell and close sales, if you want to learn how to get romantic with someone that you just met, if you want to navigate sketchy situations where there's conflict, if you want to pitch a business idea, if you want to go to a job interview, something where the stakes are high, you're going to have to learn how to pinpoint and release certain stifling inhibitions that are preventing that free flow of energy. And these are usually brought on by a variety of reasons. I mean, some of them are biological in nature. They might be instinctual anxiety triggers around social humiliation. There might be some other stuff. I mean, there might be, but there's definitely some other stuff going on. The Cube. Brad Butherworth says, The Cube, and I need a female opinion on something. Yeah, some classics. But then of course we have negative social counter conditioning from all sources. So awareness is the first step. So again, what I really wanted to do, what I've dedicated my adult life to, is number one, learning technique. Because again, if you do the stuff that's only possible in the movies, those types of interactions will place certain social demands upon you, and you have to understand the waypoints of those types of actions. You have to understand, again, a little bit of technique of how to get from A to B to C to D to E to F to the big F, V to P and V. P and V, and as they say, and but again, ultimately, people aren't attracted to the vibe or the content; they're attracted to the vibe. The content will move things along, but the vibe will make them keep looking long enough for you to execute that process. So, teaching out a vibe though, that's really been the big goal for me over the past couple of years, because there's really been no clear vocabulary around surrounding these issues, with vibe. I tell somebody like, oh, you seem stifled. Let's go with your emotional energy. Like, what that mean? The hell does that mean? And again, they just feel judged, but I'm not giving them any clear means of making that change. So again, when I did Charisma Mastery, I investigated on a deep level. I came up with like a 16-hour program that gets into like microscopic detail on how to, like again, here's a model of the human energy system. Here's, here's an idea for a charismatic vision you might want to create. Here are the social demands being put upon you by the types of interactions you want to have. What are the societal conditions in which you're trying to execute those interactions? What are some of the inhibitions and the negative social counter conditionings that are causing these, again, these blocks, these tension blocks, for a better term? What are the mechanisms of these blocks? How can we pinpoint and identify these? And then, last but not least, how can we give you a total exercise process to very methodically chip away at these things? Again, identify, shine a light on them, and then start without shame or guilt, with simple awareness, to begin that process of releasing them and replacing their manifestations in your life, so you can be completely free and have that access to the flow state. You can have that access to your intuition. You can have that access to your, again, fundamental selfness, if you will. And when you're free like that, again, essentially what we're doing, the purpose of becoming more charismatic is to give the people you speak with an almost consciousness expanding interaction with higher energies. I mean, it sounds kind of grandiose, but I mean, that's what we're fucking doing here now. And, I've been teaching boot camps again the past month or so, past month and a half. And it's been, again, just a complete honor and privilege to be doing that again. And it's like a fish back to water. I was like, oh, I still know how to do it. It's like, oh, no, this is your home. This is where you live. This is your dojo. And it's been fucking great. But I think a silver lining of this whole, pandemic and everything was we had to learn how to teach digitally, take the teaching digitally and learn how to teach in that medium. And, I put Charisma Mastery about a year ago, and then I've been teaching it on the weekly to a pretty intimate group, a rotating intimate group of mentoring students for the past year. And like, again, it's one thing to write it all down and present it in a digital product. It's another to like directly work with those exercises for a year and say, okay, what actually works? Because again, I was like, this sounds good on paper, and it does jive with what I've seen in the real world. But now, like, what's it like to actually work with these people? So it's kind of interesting, because the two biggest feedbacks that I got from Charisma Mastery were, number one, it's too fucking long. There's too many big words. Which, look, I thought I was doing you a favor by trying not to assume you're an imbecile. I'm like, no, but I get it. Look, I used to read the dictionary when I was a kid, and so I'm like, oh, my big words, but my big words. So, that was a little too lengthy. And so one thing, you all probably heard of that Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, which is that, in practice, 20% of the fundamental actions or learnings or insights actually garner 80% of the results. So in the process of teaching that over the past year, I've identified what are those 20% fundamentals out of all this, 16-hour program that would get people the result in the maximum amount of time. And then furthermore, I've also refined my understanding of it to the point where I can explain it in more simple terms. Because I think in those more complicated terms, but now it's like, okay, how can I present it in simple terms? So this week, I'm coming out with a new program called 5-Hour Charisma. It's an 16-hour program, it's a 5-hour program. And it's designed to present those fundamentals in a very accessible way, right? Where you don't have to kind of slog through 16 hours of program and and all that. You know, it's just like simple 5 hours. 5-hour charisma. And again, the fundamental stuff presented in a very simple way that's going to get you the 80% of the results. And then furthermore, I've also added in, there's 5 live events. For those of you who actually sign up for this program, get on board during the initial period, you're going to be able to participate in those 5 live events. So it's essentially kind of like a mini mentoring. And I'm going to talk about the stuff I've learned in the years since coming out with Charisma Mastery as well. So anyway, I just wanted to pop off a quick live here. I'm going to dinner right now. But, you know, it's coming out this Friday. So just kind of wanted to bring awareness up while wearing my little polo shirt. And yeah, and by the way, so I'm going to be doing lives all week. So usually probably around this time, maybe I'll mix it up a little bit. And I'll be sure to, like I said, I'm kind of on a time crunch right now, but I will be sure to engage with y'all